This is Inspirational Women, a weekly series shining the spotlight on female trailblazers making a true difference in our community. Once again, here is Kate Daniels.
Carol Lynn joins us now. Her most recent accomplishment is her book, When News Breaks, a Memoir of Love and War. Carol is the groundbreaking former ABC News and CNN anchor who brought us some of the most defining moments of the 21st century, which includes her coverage on the morning of 9/11. That was her highly visible professional life, which naturally features in When News Breaks. But that is only a part of who Carol Lynn is, and in a beautifully and lovingly written prose, Carol opens her soul and shares stories that can only help us toward our own stories and insights. Carol Lynn, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you to your readers and listeners.
Well, I'm sure if they aren't readers yet, then as we have this opportunity to have a good conversation and talk about this new aspect of your life as an author, as a writer, because you've always been a writer, though, right? I mean, being in the media business, one has to have some of that going on in their life, right?
Oh, but writing a book is a completely different animal, if you will.
Sure.
And all due respect for authors, because it's a devotion, but it's been incredible. It's been a wonderful experience, Kate.
Well, and that's certainly very important that you come through it and say that it's been a wonderful experience. Did you anticipate that as you thought about writing this memoir, When News Breaks, that it
No.
that maybe that would have been like, okay, let's not even try that?
It was a commitment and it was a devotion. I faced this story many times over the years. I was encouraged to write it years ago. It's about the making and breaking of a life, and how do we get to that life of purpose when I was so devoted to working towards a life that everyone told me they thought I should have. You should do this, you should do that. Seeking identity in the gaze of others. It's a difficult admission to make to oneself, but I felt like, Kate, it was time to put it down into words, because I think when I do that, and other writers may feel the same way, there's a deeper understanding. And with memoir, it's a deeper understanding of why did I make those choices, and how can I move through regret and grief and understand that the mistakes that I made are not the aspects of my life that will clearly define me. And so it's a selfish endeavor initially. It's one that I did for myself. I did also so that my daughter would have her complete story of how she came to be. So it was a difficult decision to make, but once I did it and committed to it and thought to myself, this doesn't have to go into the wild. This doesn't have to be a public story. This can be something simply that I do for myself, I do for my daughter, I do for my family. And I do to feel a sense of freedom that, okay, I've put the story into words. That can be enough. And then the publishing journey just becomes its own separate piece.
Oh, and I've heard that before, but for you, it sounds like you were being asked to write this memoir, so you didn't have to go seeking a publisher, or was that still part of it?
Definitely still part of it. So initially, when my colleagues at CNN encouraged me, thinking that I had a story of loss and grief and, to some degree, redemption and healing, that they thought it would be a great story. Write the book, Carol. And but the events of my life, I had to set it aside because, when you immerse in memoir, you relive the past. You go deep into the past in ways that are different than actually living it, because you're examining it. But I needed to set those pages aside. And then time passed. Life happened. And I have this distance from my career and the woman I used to be. And I was able to, frankly, be more honest with myself in the writing and ask me the big question, why do we love the people we love and the things we love, and when, if ever, is the right time to let go. And did I let go all these years later? And so the people who encouraged me, the journalists, were thinking, oh, this is going to be the story of a CNN journalist, when really it's a story of a woman who happened to be a journalist. And I'm so excited to see readers in these early weeks after publication having the experience where they see themselves in the pages. They see their careers and their marriages and their decisions about the partners in their lives, or the choices that they made in career and having a family. And that, to me, Kate, is the most exciting because I think we share a story as women who are making these critical decisions and learning that we are bigger than the mistakes that we made, that they aren't mistakes, that they're part of this journey to being whole, I think. So I'm glad I set the book aside. I think every book has its season and will have its own life and hopefully lands in the public sphere at a time when it's going to mean the most to other readers.
And I dare say that to that point, whenever it lands, would find that it's that right niche. But being that it's right now, again, the timing couldn't be better, because I think your perspectives, your experiences, and all that's going on in the world right now feels almost unprecedented, but it may be some history repeating itself. But still, I think on so many levels, that your story, your experiences will definitely resonate, and you're finding that that's so.
Yes, and thank you for saying so, Kate. The book begins in chapter 1 on the border with Afghanistan in the weeks after I was the first anchor to report the first attack on the World Trade Center, the first national anchor. I was an anchor, a morning anchor at CNN. And chapter 1 opens being in the crosshairs of a Taliban fighter, and that becomes the metaphor for what it is to be a woman working in a male-dominated field. But it also led me to talk about my husband and the state of our marriage at that time, and the decisions that he wanted me to make in terms of when are we going to start a family. And I think that first chapter resonates with a lot of readers because they see themselves in the crosshairs too. They know what that pressure feels like to be judged for who they are, how they're seen, and how we're seen is not always who we are. It's not all the decisions, all the life experience that we bring to the moment. And the arc of the story is really, yes, it's a career, but it's a complicated love story with a career and an older newsman who guided my career, who broke my heart. The events that brought us together and nearly tore us apart and led us to this decision, finally, to have a child, to bring life in the world at a time after 9/11 when there was so much grieving and loss. And then it becomes a very different journey in the book, because after achieving all the things that, maybe are the markers of success in a traditional or a commercial sense, the career, the man, the house, the awards, and now the child coming into the world, that we would once again try to touch the sky only to find that Will would be diagnosed with a rare cancer. And the journey of me as a woman changes. Instead of pursuing the relationship and the career, it's pursuing a cure. It's pursuing our future. And I think that's where, when readers say, wow, the second half of the book really flies, it's because that is our common experience. So even not just women, but I'm hearing from male readers who say, this reminds me of when I was caregiving my wife through her cancer treatment and the bittersweetness of what that's like. When you sit in your life and your space and you sit between life and death and you begin to feel everything more intensely and on some days even more exquisitely. And people who've gone through these journeys where you realize that your life is not at all what you imagined it was going to be, and now you're going to be put to the test. And it's a test that we don't wish on anyone. But it's a test, I think, that we all inevitably face in one form or another.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're always curious about other people's journeys. How did they come through it? And what was that like? And what did it take? And what were the factors? What did that person have within their being? What did they bring to that moment that helped them the most? And I think that was exciting to see. I didn't really even know many of these answers until I wrote the book. It was it was like therapy, Kate.
Oh, yeah.
There were these aha moments
Mm-hmm.
where I realized, why did I pick this crazy career when honestly me as a person was probably not best suited to it. I'm sensitive. I'm actually very family oriented. I'm actually somewhat of an introvert naturally, and I pushed myself into this very public light. And I did well by it, but I was never fully comfortable with it. It caused me a tremendous amount of anxiety. And it was all about push, 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 never take no for an answer. It's always going to be yes. But, when you're caregiving somebody with a rare cancer, you're not always guaranteed to get to that yes. The path becomes very rocky and uncertain. And I think writing about it, which was really hard, those were the pages, the chapters that if it weren't for a writing group, if it wasn't for this amazing community of writers that I'm part of, I don't think I would have been able to do it.
Wow. Well, you've just shared so much that I feel any of us can take a piece of or take all of it and apply in our own lives, as different as they may be. I think that's where story is so, so powerful because it gives us a chance to see it kind of out there, and then we see what parts of it we can apply in our own lives and grow and really heal from in much a similar way.
Yes, and I think that's the work that you're doing, Kate, giving authors voice, but also I can hear it in your voice. You just have this natural curiosity about other people and the word on the page. And I just love it because I think in so many ways we're very similar. You are interested genuinely in the thoughts and the creative process and the lives of others. And that is what it is to be a journalist. And I think that these kinds of conversations are so important because you talk about the contemporary landscape where there is so much national anxiety and grief. And we are facing our own 25th anniversary of 9/11 amidst, I'm just going to say it, the chaos that we see in the headlines every single day. And what do we do with that? What do we find spaces where we can quietly read and experience the lives of others and be assured that it's not a happy ending, that there's a path forward, right? And I think that's where Memoir really comes into play.
Oh, there you are, the very skilled professional journalist and author, and having experienced, I think writing just in general has a therapeutic aspect to it, right? And so with what you've just shared, it's just really so powerful. And I'm going to back up to your saying that we are similar. Well, where this would definitely diverge, I would not be going to Afghanistan, going off where I am going to be in the crosshairs, off to all that uncertainty. So there's you definitely were being stretched, but you were meant to be there, I'm guessing.
I think meant to be, that is a super interesting phrase because I really believe in that. I believe that things happen for a reason. That's just my belief system. Mm-hmm. And I really do try to seek meaning, both in the joyful occasions and be grateful, but also in those stressful situations. And in the writing of this, I had to ask myself, what drove me to put myself at risk? And just in that news coverage post 9/11, desperately wanting to go to Afghanistan, though, by the way, at the time, the Taliban had to approve, believe it or not, press passes for journalists to enter Afghanistan, and because I was a woman, I was denied. So I had to go to the Afghan border through Pakistan. But nevertheless, setting that point aside, talk about a male-dominated world.
Yeah.
To beg for an assignment like that comes from somewhere. Yes, there is the thrill, there is the curiosity, there is the obligation to the story. Like when you have a story like 9/11 breaking, where do you want to be? Well, of course, so many journalists want to be at ground zero, but I always wanted to understand the why, and I always wanted to understand the where, and then to some degree the how. So getting there with a network as resourced and as experienced as CNN, knowing that I was going to be as safe as possible, but always still taking that risk, to be there, to be present, and to be eyewitness, to have an understanding and speak to people, boots on the ground, local people, academics in Pakistan, tribal leaders eventually with connections into the Taliban. So many things don't make print or air. You have to be there. And then I think it's the value of travel, which is available to all of us, to go and ask people questions about their why. And we can go into a situation with judgments, but allow ourselves to be surprised. So I love it when reporters have a chance to do a reporter's notebook style of reporting where these are the things that don't make the story, because I think that's where you get more context about what's happening. But to get to your point about being an adrenaline junkie, why do some people have the good common sense to stay home or make the choice to take that risk? I think for me, what came out in When News Breaks is the fact that I was driven by forces that even I didn't understand at the time. This childhood experience with my father that was cut short when he had his stroke when I was 11 years old. His pursuit of knowledge as an immigrant to our country, and his deep desire to believe that you could be anything, that you could have all the knowledge in the world. And for him to buy me this set of encyclopedias when, I was just a little girl, and to spend those hot summer days going through the pages and reading the stories and giving me the sense of confidence that, I could hold all the knowledge in the world between these pages. And what could I do with that? And the fact that he came to this country to earn his PhD only to not be able to return to China to teach. His broken dream became my dream to fulfill. And it was subliminal, I think. But it played out, that desire to make sure that that immigrant journey had its payoff in the next generation was very much embedded in me. And then the adrenaline just became many things. It was part of that wish fulfillment, but it was also an escape from a marriage at the time to a man who I deeply loved. My career was so intertwined with his. He was a journalist. And all the things that we had in common. In the book, there are love letters that I decided to include, and my editor was gobsmacked that, he used journalistic metaphors to talk about our situation and the feelings between us, that here he was rambling on about our relationship, everything trying to be reduced into a 6-minute video, with his metaphor for, how he was trying to search for the words of what he thought our relationship could be. And I never noted that, but it takes that outside reader to say, wow, you guys were really, it was work and love and love and work. And no wonder it was so difficult to pose the question, should I stay or should I leave? And, that's where I didn't set out to write the story of a gonzo journalist. I set out to write the story of a woman in love with a career and a man. And the design of the book cover, the font, everything about it, the prologue, everything was to make sure that the reader was prepared for the story that they were going to read, because I didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want someone to come to the book and say, oh, I thought this was going to be way more about the news business, although there's some of that in there, but that it's a backdrop and a stage to a life that so many of us live and have in common.
It is amazing, this cover, and I appreciate your drawing our attention to that, because now looking at it, it's quite obvious. When news breaks, the break, the word itself being broken on the page is it just
Hmm.
really jumps out at me now. But I was also taken with like the subtitle, A Memoir of Love and War, and how that that all just kind of weaves itself together. It is of your relationship. It is about the war that was happening, continues to happen, about the journalism, but it's just like love then also being the answer to war
Hmm.
and to all that kind of negativity and violence that goes on. It just, I thought it was just a beautiful subtitle.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, within all of us, there's a war of words
Mm,
and a battle of emotions. And how do we get from that tension in our lives to a place of forgiveness? You
mm,
know, what is it to really love someone? And when I had my child, you know, when Will was diagnosed when I was 6 months pregnant, and then he was there to witness the birth of his daughter, and we lost him 10 weeks later. And I went from this world of men and breaking news to this kind of breaking of my own.
mm-hmm,
And that's where I wanted to take the reader, you know, whether it was the, the battle within the healthcare system to get all the options that could be made available to him, to this fight inside myself of I'm not a woman who was meant to be a mother. I don't know that I have a maternal bone in my body. And I had to find it, and I had to figure out how I was going to be, what kind of woman was I going to be without the man who led me there, and an industry that was changing while I was on maternity leave and grieving. And what would I return to when I finally did go back to CNN? And ultimately, it was the community of my colleagues and other mothers. There are funny scenes in this book too. I mean, I went to a Mommy and Me. If for any of the folks out there who know what Mommy and Me is, it's that 1 hour of communal escape where moms can sit in a circle and share what's going on in their lives while their babies play. But it was something the border of Afghanistan was more familiar to me than a Mommy and Me class. I mean, that's where I was in terms of who I was as a mother and a woman. And I had to figure all that out, Kate. And that is the war within me. What choices am I going to have to make to be the mother that my daughter deserves? There is a dramatic scene in the book where that kind of choice of, do I let her go? Do I stay? And if I stay, what am I committing to? And what do I have to let go of? And that push and pull of what we keep and what we release is part of that, our love of our past and how we fall in love with our present. So thank you for noting that in the cover.
well, that's the cover, and the content, as you've touched on various parts of it, is just so honest and both gut wrenching and loving. And earlier on, you mentioned about making mistakes that are not really mistakes. It's what life is. And that's the value, again, of story and of being so honest with what you share that really allows any of us, all of us, to be able to really apply that within ourselves and find that
Mm,
honesty and see where we're willing to share it with the world, or with at least someone else that's important in our life.
yes. It's, I love the way that you use the word story, because that's what it is. It's not a tell-all,
Mm,
it's not I'm not stringing events together. I want to be very intentional about the arc and what I included, the moments that I included in the story, because it's that connective tissue of why, right? So the backstory of my parents and moments with my father and what happened with him and how that baton so quickly passed to meeting Will on the campaign trail, and this crazy missile of a man who was aggravating me to no end because I was supposed to be supervising him, but I think he was trying to supervise me. to, how a love story develops and how to integrate this crazy guy with the difficult relationship, but a funny one with my feisty mother. And, I think seeing that connective tissue, it's not going from, well, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. It's just how we and our relationships evolve and how we make sense of things that if you had told me that this was going to happen, I never would have believed you. But 100%, I think any of us, if we take the time to ask ourselves that question, holy moly, what was I thinking? Or how did that happen? And that's the beauty of talking story. I live in Hawaii, and that's how it's described. We talk story.
Yes.
And, maybe somewhere else in the country, it's a fireside chat or a long walk with a girlfriend. But we all have those, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Or how did that happen? And I think that's the connective tissue of a good book.
Oh, good book. It's a great book. And I hope that everyone really opens themselves up to getting a copy, because there's just so much that we can learn and grow from here. And again, because it is, as you say, talk story, we're just all here together wanting to create the best life possible. And it's in this kind of a relationship that we can do it.
100%, Kate. And I want to shout out to independent bookstores, because the way the publishing world works now, as I'm learning it and understanding it, I think it sometimes makes it difficult for independent bookstores to stock titles. So I'm with a small press, Third Row Press. Of course, When News Breaks is available online wherever books are sold. But I also want to support independent bookstores, and I think the way we encourage them to stock, to take that, I think it's, while with Amazon, it's one step, right? And boom, it's on Amazon. I think with independent bookstores, it takes maybe two steps, and they want to make sure that it's going to be a title worth carrying. It's a title that people see value in. And so to support those independent bookstores, shop on Bookshop or go to your local bookstore and ask for the title.
Yes.
And I say that not for myself. I say that for the brave souls out there who stand in their brick and mortar and they want to carry titles that mean something to their community. And if I'm so fortunate that your listeners would consider When News Breaks, a memoir of love and war, I would love to see it in an independent bookstore and champion that owner.
Perfect. Absolutely. I totally underscore and put exclamation points behind that, Carol. That was perfect.
Go booksellers.
Go booksellers. Yes, absolutely. So just a couple more things, because unfortunately time is running out on us. To connect with you, to follow you, we should go to Instagram?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. The handle is @CarolLynnNow, and same on Facebook. On the website, it's carollynnnow.com. But I would love for this community of people to join me. I'm posting, I found a treasure box of old photos. I shouldn't say old photos. They're just gorgeous photos of my time in the field with Will, those early days of struggle with Chloe. And this is before digital, right? So these are photos that I kept in a treasure box hidden away. And I thought, where are those? I'm going to be sharing behind-the-scenes stories, quotes from the book. If your listeners are interested in writing, aspects of the writing journey, this is all new and exciting to me. And also comments from readers who are DMing me or emailing me. I love it all. Please join me at Carol Lynn Now.
Wonderful. Well, Carol Lynn, this has been just such a delight. I just so appreciate you and all that you have done. Look forward to what will keep unfolding and how life will also be for your daughter. All of that is so beautiful. So thank you so greatly for being with us today. This has really been an honor.
My pleasure. Back at you, Kate. Thank you for all that you do. Really appreciate the work.
Thank you for being here this morning to meet these special guests with their important stories and the opportunities they offer us to make our life and the lives of others better. Please check this station's website for the podcasts for more information about these guests, and please share the stories with your family and friends. I'm Kate Daniels, and if you'd like to connect with me, simply send me an email, katedaniels@hubbardradio.com. And as the Reverend Martin Luther King encouraged, let's make this, which happens to be his birthday, a day of service.
Thank you for listening to Inspirational Women. Tune in every Sunday morning at this time to hear about those truly empowering the Northwest community, all for the greater good. Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women are a public service of Hubbard Radio Seattle.